Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the latest on the U.S. military's capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Also tonight, what business leaders want to see from the upcoming state legislative session, and how to avoid burnout in the new year amid the pressure to set and achieve goals. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The Pentagon today started administrative actions against Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife appeared in a U.S. federal court today and pleaded not guilty to federal drug trafficking and weapons charges. Maduro told the judge that he and his wife were, quote, kidnapped by U.S. forces and that, quote, I am still president of my country. For more on what happened over the weekend and the ramifications of the U.S. military operation, we welcome Dr. Evelyn Farkas. She's the executive director of the McCain Institute at ASU. Dr. Farkas, good to see you again. Evelyn, it's always a pleasure. Thought of you really quickly after all this happened because I wanted to get your initial thoughts on all of this.
Well, thank you for having me, Ted. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, your initial thoughts when you first heard of this.
Well, look, I think there's a lot about this that is, I guess, puzzling would be the most neutral way of putting it, because I had told you, I believe, before when we talked about Venezuela, that I wondered what the administration's objectives were, because they weren't telling us exactly why they were bombing boats with cocaine going to Europe, but talking about fentanyl going from Venezuela, which it doesn't, to the United States. And they hadn't at that point talked about oil. They did talk about Maduro being the head of a narco-terrorist cartel. So there were already questions going into this past weekend. But then, of course, this operation and President Trump's comments, and then some contradictory comments by his Secretary of State, have continued to confuse matters. So I think for the American people and for your viewers, there must be a lot of confusion about what exactly we're doing in Venezuela. And maybe there's something in it for many different people, and maybe that's why they're not being clear about it out of the White House, because people like me who understand that we want more democracies around the world to keep us safe and secure and to do more trade on a level playing field. You know, we applaud that, especially since Maduro stole the last election in Venezuela from Democrats who would have had a pro-U.S. policy, who would not have been likely corrupt. And one of them, of course, got the Nobel Peace Prize. So she's part of that opposition coalition. And so I think people like me can find merit in getting rid of Maduro. But the biggest questions are what's next. And it doesn't seem like there's a clear plan. And part of that has to do with lack of clarity about the objective.
Well, indeed, and the president saying that the U.S. will run Venezuela. What does that mean? Initially, the president said there will be troops, boots on the ground, then kind of backed off on that. Then the big oil companies will be assigned to, redistribute and refurbish Venezuela's oil industry, and then we're not sure if that's even legal. What is going on? What do we know?
Right. I mean, the president sounded like he was laying out kind of a 19th century power grab for Venezuela's oil, which, by the way, when they nationalized the oil industry in Venezuela, it was done with a lot of warning to the U.S. companies, and there were and are some legal processes. So it's not like there's an outstanding grievance by those companies necessarily. But in any event, President Trump talked about it as if we're going in there to get oil. And, I don't think that that's something the American people necessarily sign up for. That's really 19th century kind of imperialist. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, Secretary of State, Rubio said that we want a democratic regime. We want regime change. If you want regime change and if you want the oil, you need another piece of it. Like you said, somebody has to be in control that you can trust. And the Venezuelan armed forces have to be on the side of U.S. interests. And that is unclear right now. This newly sworn in former vice president under Maduro, who's completely corrupt and complicit in all of his crimes, she said now she's going to toe the line and do what the United States does. I don't think that's credible.
All right, and also, if the oil companies do go in there and they rebuild the infrastructure as the president says, who's going to protect them? It's going to be American U.S. troops, will it not?
Well, unless somehow the Venezuelan military can be convinced to do this. But there would have to be a benefit to them, which means that then we would be essentially paying the military that's working still for this corrupt, drug smuggling, human rights violating. Don't forget, Americans and others are being held in prison by this new president and by the Maduro regime. We would be complicit now in their government if we're providing money and making a deal with them. So there are a lot of problems here, morally, legally, et cetera.
There are also problems among some on Capitol Hill, many on Capitol Hill, because there was no congressional approval for any of this. Secretary of State Rubio said that the mission didn't need legislative okay. Does he have a point there?
He has a narrow point, and it's a legal point. Yes, under U.S. domestic law, if we find that somebody is the head of a drug cartel who's violating our laws when it comes to narco-terrorism, narco-trafficking, then we can go and use the long arm of the U.S. law and seek them and extradite them forcibly into the United States. Now, that's not something we normally do without the consent of the country involved, but it's not unprecedented. And under U.S. law, it's not illegal. Under international law, it's a different question.
Yeah.
And politically, as you asked in the beginning, politically, it's not the best idea because at the end of the day, according to U.S. law and our Constitution, Congress pays the bills. And this is going to and has already cost some money. And Congress has to make some decisions here. And Congress speaks for the American people. And any kind of foreign intervention of this nature, even if it's limited, you want to have the American people behind you. You want to have Congress behind you. So politically, I don't think it was wise at all on the part of this administration to basically dismiss the role of Congress.
And Evelyn, compare this, what the U.S. did in Venezuela, to what Russia, obviously on a much grander and harsher scale, is doing in Ukraine, and what the world worries that China might do in Taiwan.
Well, these things are completely different, Ted, with the only commonality being that we went into Venezuela without any cover internationally, which is to say there were no UN resolutions that could be construed as supportive of getting rid of Maduro. There was no coalition of the willing, so some kind of consensus. It's not necessarily full-blown legal, but anyway, demonstrates to the world that there's a legitimate argument for the United States to go in and take out a leader. Those things were missing. And in that sense, it's like the invasion of Ukraine or something that the Chinese president might consider doing vis-a-vis Taiwan. However, it's completely different because we did a clean operation. We minimized, as far as I can tell, casualties of innocent bystanders. It was very limited in scope. And certainly there were no human rights violations, though no raping, no torturing, no stealing children and taking them to Russia, as the Russians did in Ukraine. We have not said that we are going to seize Venezuela and keep it forever, and erase the Venezuelan identity and make it part of the United States. So in that sense, it's completely not comparable. It's a very narrow way you can compare them. But your point, I think, is well taken, that we can't trust dictators like Putin and Xi not to turn around and say, well, I'm going to make up some kind of excuse because they don't see, the world hasn't understood the argument that the United States is making to take out Maduro sufficiently. So those other leaders can use disinformation and they can fabricate an argument and say, well, we have the power to do it, so we're just going to do it. And I think that's the difference. We've had power as the United States government all along under President Bush. We all remember the Iraq invasion. We had the power to do it without any other countries, yet we didn't. We didn't do it in the first Gulf War. We didn't do it in the war against Iraq because essentially the smart way to go, if you want international credibility and you don't want these other countries following your lead, meaning Russia, China, and seizing their neighbors, is to gain legitimacy internationally to get other countries on board.
Last question. It's got to be really quick because we're running short on time here. But if you're a Canadian official, if you're an official in Cuba, if you're an official in Greenland, if you're Denmark, which runs, all these places, Colombia, is this the first shoe to fall?
Well, you're going to be running to Capitol Hill. You're going to be reminding members of Congress that they have the responsibility to declare war. Even in this case with Venezuela going forward, Congress has to authorize any further military force, which it has not done. And that's according to U.S. law and the War Powers Resolution. So if you're in those countries, you want to sleep with one eye open and you want to go up to Capitol Hill.
All right. Dr. Evelyn Farkas again, McCain Institute, thank you so much. Great conversation. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Ted.
In this episode, actors America Ferrera and Darren Criss uncovered their roots. How does it feel to see that?
It's magic.
That is crazy.
I have seen one photograph of my grandmother until now.
America, this is a love letter written by your grandmother.
Stop it! A love letter?
Please turn the page.
What?
This history is recovered from what felt like a black hole.
Tuesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
The LA firestorm was one of many recent fire disasters causing unprecedented destruction. Now these tragic fires seem inevitable, but does it have to be that way? I'm Maya May, the host of PBS's Weathered, and I'm on a journey to understand the aftermath of the LA firestorm, how we're facing this moment of extreme change, and how we can prevent the next tragedy before it's too late.
Wednesday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
Put the kettle on again. We're going to have company.
Well, it has been unseasonably cold.
Comfortable bed, home-cooked meals.
Oh, sounds perfect.
Shall we just stay here?
Oh, I was hoping you'd say that.
You are very much in the right place.
Intriguing.
Intriguing and potentially rewarding. Something for everyone, if you catch my drift.
We are hearing from advocates of various issues this week to learn about what they're looking for from the state legislature this upcoming session. We kick things off tonight with what the business community will be watching. Joining us is Danny Seiden, President and CEO of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Todd Sanders. He's President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber. Good to have you both here. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're always the happiest group.
We're here to deliver.
Happy New Year, Ted.
Yeah, we get advocates, and boy, the business, you guys are up. Hey. What more can you ask for? What are you looking for? Danny, we'll start with you.
Well, we're looking for, again, predictability, reliability, and really just not taking our foot off the gas. Arizona has done very well in terms of economic growth. So this session, especially with the budget constraints, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later, we're hoping that legislators return to taking a statewide approach to the budget process. That we're trying to think bigger, long-term, rather than individual, just more pork-type projects. So our hope really is that the policies that we've pushed for that have been successful, including the Arizona Commerce Authority, including securitization on the utilities, all these moves that are meant to strengthen our economic competitiveness, that they'll continue to support these things.
With those budget constraints, do you emphasize the new or building up what's already there?
Well, I think for us, to Danny's point, really it's a less is more approach. I mean, as you saw from your last segment, it's a little unpredictable out there, not just in Venezuela, but in the United States of America and Arizona. And I think to the point that was made earlier, this economy is outperforming almost every economy in the country. And we want to make sure that we're not having policy swings to the left or the right, but that we're staying true up the middle, dealing with the budget deficit and doing the budget in a way that I think goes back to the traditional approach.
Let's talk about taxation. How much more can be cut, and how do you find the balance between lower tax rates and services?
Well, I think, again, if you look at where we are with the budget right now, and we don't know the full impact of H.R. 1, or the One Big Beautiful Bill, or whatever you want to call it, what that means for Arizona and conformity just yet. I've heard projections as of Todd, I'm sure, into the billions over the next few years. There's a very easy solution to help close that gap almost in half right away, and that is the extension of Prop 123. And you've heard Todd and I talk about that. I think the last 3 years, the chambers and the business community have been calling for a simple extension of 123. That's about $300 million a year right there, which helps out a lot. You don't have to raise taxes to do that. That's all our land trust and how it performs.
Yeah, well, and I think, to that point, I think Danny's right. And when you look at sort of the inflow, $165 billion, just look at that. $165 billion foreign investment in Arizona because of workforce, right? We need to have the right workforce. So this investment, which also I think creates an opportunity on the budget side, I think it's a win-win.
Does the business community get involved with the ESA argument and the idea that guardrails are needed? I don't think anyone's going to suggest it's going to go off into the sunset here, but some are suggesting that some of the things that are being paid for a little out of bounds.
Well, and I think that was something that was looked at last year. I think for us, certainly ESAs are something you should look at. And clearly, if there are bad actors out there, I don't think anybody's going to object to looking at that. But for us, the biggest issue is making sure that you're making the proper investment in education and post-secondary education so that you have the workforce that's necessary to power this economy.
I was going to say, how do you make sure that we can talk about anything you want in education, the subtext here, but the bottom line is you want kids graduating with skills and the things upstairs that'll get the economy going and make for a good community and a good society.
You're right, and that helps with economic competitiveness. Now, we've seen how to do this at the higher ed level. I would, again, bring up Arizona State University and President Michael Crow. He's done a fantastic job reverse engineering a talent pipeline. He works with the business community. He knows what our needs are, and that's why ASU now has the largest graduating class of engineers in the entire country. And that same model can be applied all the way down, definitely with our community colleges, who have been great partners with Lucid, with the semiconductor industry. We continue to find ways to partner with them, and all the way down to K through 12 in our JTEDs, our CTE programs, making sure they're learning skills and trades that are very valuable right now.
Let's talk regulations. Again, let's talk a balance here. How do you find the balance between the fewer regulations and a safe business climate?
Well, I think the biggest issue for us, especially at the legislative level, and bills that we see year after year, are mandates. So obviously, we know that inflation costs are still rising. Businesses aren't immune to those costs. And we see mandate bills by the legislature, and they come from both the left and the right. That's where I think the biggest concern that we have, because those costs are going to have to be absorbed by the business, or we're going to have to pass them on to consumers, and consumers just can't take it anymore.
No, Todd's right. If we were to show you our polling that we do almost monthly, Ted, you would see the number 1, 2, and 3 issue is now affordability in some definition. So with affordability being everything heading into the election cycle, we can't do anything that makes it more expensive for Arizonans. We have to do what we can to reduce regulations so we can build more houses, so we can grow our businesses faster and continue to attract more jobs.
Yeah, and that sounds great, except what about power? What about infrastructure? What about water? Do we have enough? Todd, we'll start with you. Do we have enough for all of this growth?
Well, I think that what it's going to take is an intentional approach. You go back to the Great Recession, 2008. We had a limited economy based on 1 or 2 pillars. We were intentional about what that was going to look like. It was going to include financial services, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and I think we need to take that same intentional approach to water and energy to ensure that we will, and so that those companies coming in are going to have the energy they need, but certainly incumbent Arizona companies and us Arizonans who live here are going to have the energy we need also to power what we want to do.
And Danny, we've talked about energy. You and I have talked about energy before in this program, and that is a huge deal.
It's the number 1 issue for businesses when they make a decision to invest. And Arizona has long enjoyed one of the most reliable and most affordable energy grids in the entire country. And I think our utilities and our Corporation Commission have done a very good job with that planning. If you look at the growth pays for growth model they just released on something like data centers, making sure that data centers pay a little bit of a higher rate so it doesn't put too much of a strain on existing power users. That's how innovative our leaders are being. That's coming from the private sector. And Chairman Kevin Thompson has been doing a fantastic job protecting ratepayers.
And this is a great place to be. I mean, think about it. We have so many businesses coming here and people coming here that we're having to think about energy proactively, which has never been something we've had to do before.
And I kind of need a yes or no answer because we're running behind on everything here. Is the legislature capable of doing these kinds of things?
I think they are.
Are these issues above what the legislature's pay grade is?
I have confidence. I think they can. I mean, these are serious questions, and they're above the culture wars and all this other stuff that we see. And I think we need to sort of make sure that they are focused on these issues.
Danny?
History says yes. They did it for Amcor. They did it for Axon. They did it for the Diamondbacks. Our legislature can come together in a bipartisan fashion and solve big problems.
Danny Seiden, Todd Sanders, good to have you here.
Thank you.
It's that time of year for New Year's resolutions, but for many that could mean a sense of overwhelming pressure to set and achieve goals while meeting the demands of everyday life, all of which can lead to burnout. To learn more about how to recognize burnout, how to avoid it, we welcome Ashley Taylor Barber. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, your jacket alone is going to keep me from burning out. I can't.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, very, very good. What is burnout?
Oh my gosh. So burnout goes far beyond not just having enough rest. It's chronic overextension and exhaustion. If you are not looking forward to the things that you usually handle, you're probably burnt out.
So you're exhausted, you're unmotivated, you feel stretched too thin, all of these things and more.
All of the above.
Okay, how do you avoid that, especially when you're trying to do I mean, this is a time of year when you got goals and plans.
Right. So most of us go into the new year already burnt out and exhausted. So we need to look at the patterns that got us here in the first place and change those. Are we overgiving? Are we overextending? Realistic goals, realistic expectations for ourselves in this new year.
And realistic because I would imagine there's a sense of burnout when some of these goals fall by the wayside.
Absolutely. I mean, shame, blame, and guilt is heavy, but also just looking at the emotional climate of what's going on in the country, right? If you were already emotionally exhausted at the start of last year, and this year you feel like things have gotten worse, especially with the explosion of inflation, you're probably already burnt out. So what do we need to do differently this year that we didn't do last year? What do we need to prepare for so we're not overextended? What do we need to say no to?
How do you realize and how do you measure your capacity, especially based on last year or maybe the previous years? I mean, how do you know when, okay, my goal is this because I know my ceiling is that?
Yeah, so I think taking a look at last year's goals, did we complete them, yes or no? If it was a no, what happened? Did something interfere that made you not be able to complete it? And if so, that's okay. With all your goals from this year, with your job, with your kids, with your family, do you feel energized and ready to go? Or are you kind of tinkering on and just pushing yourself? Most people will say, I'm pushing myself.
Yeah.
Most people, especially caregivers, parents, people in the helping professions, we are the ones who will push forward even if we're tired. When you did most of your stuff last year, were you waking up exhausted? Were you already tired before the day got going? If so, we need to step back and say, what are some things that I can say no to instead of yes?
Can you also, though, use meditation and other practices of calming, mindfulness, these sorts of things?
Absolutely. I tell all my clients sensory invoking coping skills are the best. You named a few of them. The reason is because the brain develops the most in the first 5 years of life, and you're touching, smelling, tasting, and doing all of these things, so it naturally calms the nervous system. So yoga, meditation, listening to music, working out, and having these as a self-care routine will definitely help lower burnout. Also setting boundaries.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about boundaries. How do you set boundaries? I've heard of people practicing setting boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
We have courses, we have workshops. Absolutely. So my first step for setting boundary is I tell my clients, let's first realize that no is a complete sentence. It's okay to say no. And when someone asks you to do something, or maybe it's even a new job opportunity or a new experience, don't respond right away. Take maybe 24 hours, take a pause, and look at, do I have the capacity to do this physically, mentally, and emotionally? Is this going to overextend me? Am I going to regret saying yes to this later?
Can you ask someone else to say, hey, I'm thinking of practicing setting boundaries, but these are the boundaries, and have someone else say, I don't think so. I think you need to work on this, or maybe that's not the best for you. Is that a wise thing to do?
Oh, yeah. You're talking about an accountability partner. Why not, right? For example, if my goal is to actually set boundaries this year and not go back on those boundaries that I want to set, I can definitely ask an accountability partner, hey, what do you think about this boundary? What are some ways that you think I can implement it? And can you hold me accountable if I kind of go back and I add too much to my plate or I overextend? Give me a call or say, hey, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah,
do you have the capacity?
Yeah, I mentioned mindfulness and meditation and these sorts of things. Also, I would imagine if there's something you're passionate about, something that makes the time fly, that sort of thing, focus a little on that.
Put that in your schedule. Most of us know what our hobbies are, but it's really just making sure that we do them weekly so we can get that rest, restore, and digest that we need.
You mentioned rest. I would imagine prioritizing rest in all of its forms is close to number one.
Number one, but also looking at what is recovery and restore, right? So sometimes recovery and restore for me is meeting up with my friends because it's a reciprocal energy and I'm no longer so exhausted because maybe we're talking about things and that emotional load goes off, right? Or maybe it's, I go to the gym 4 times a week, but this time my workload was heavy, so I'm gonna go 3. It's that mental capacity to think about what you can do mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Last question here. If there's one piece of advice for people to avoid burnout this year, it is...
Oh, I'm going to say it again. No is a complete sentence. And stop and pause before you say yes to things.
Stop and pause. I love it.
Yeah.
No is, I love that. No is a complete sentence. I got to start using that more often.
I know. I need it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, actually, it's
I need
good.
it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, really. It's good to have you here. Happy New Year. And best of luck on your goals for the coming year. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Hi, I'm Catherine Anaya, host of Horizonte. Have you signed up for the Arizona PBS Conexión e-newsletter? Visit azpbs.org/Conexión to subscribe to the monthly resource created to serve Arizona's vibrant Hispanic community. Conexión highlights Latino-focused Arizona PBS programming and features learning resources for kids. Details on upcoming events, important headlines, and a brief column from yours truly.
Are the best drives with your car in the rearview mirror? Then you should consider donating your vehicle to Arizona PBS.
Donate it to PBS. You'll be very pleased that you did.
Visit azpbs.org/vehicle to get started. You're watching Arizona PBS, and your Arizona connection starts right here.
Hello, I'm Robin Duda, Executive Director of Development for Arizona PBS. Over the last few months, many of you